So I have 6 days left. It's been tough for the last 2 months since social services pulled the rug out from under me after.
And there's supposed to be a wind advisory all day today.
Wind advisory?
Yeah.
Great. Great.
And that wind has picked up already outside.
Oh dear. Well, so now we got a wind advisory and it's starting to rain. Cold rain, and this is the coldest day we've had in a long time. And I was supposed to walk somewhere today. So 2 months ago when social services walked me into a residential apartment for the first time in 10 years, and then just pulled the rug out from under me a few days later, unceremoniously, by phone, not even in person. Never talk to me again, just like my employer. We'll just get rid of you and we're not going to talk to you, we're not going to tell you why, we're not going to discuss anything. Seems to be a lot of that going on in this world these days. Very unprofessional, just low class. Incompetent. Why are people so afraid to talk to each other? What? My goodness. So they threw me out, and for 2 months I have been outside. So I haven't had a shower in 2 months, haven't washed my hair in 2 months, all that. Haven't had uninterrupted sleep. And probably the biggest one is I have not laid down flat in 2 months. But here's the thing, at that hotel they put me up in there wasn't the cleanest one in the world, and I picked up planter's warts on one of my feet. So walking or standing is excruciatingly painful. And frankly, the other foot has the problem with the toes, so it hurts just as bad there for a different reason. So walking or standing is excruciating, and it gets worse the more you do it. But here's the thing, sitting is also excruciating because I have a broken tailbone. So I can't sit, I can't stand, I can't walk without excruciating pain. There's nowhere I can lay down, and if I try to, the police will stop me. So the physical pain I have had over the last 2 months, I mean, I don't have any problem saying it's more physical pain in the last 2 months than I've had cumulatively over my entire 58-year life now. Just in the last 2 months. This is absolutely unbearable. For some reason, this stool I'm sitting on here, which is like a bar stool at a store here, is about the only one I can sit on without hurting my tailbone. So right now I'm okay, except my feet hurt so bad and they're just burning. They just feel like they're on fire. And of course they're all thick with dead skin and smell horrible and everything. My computer here, a year and a half ago, I had all the tools of all my trades, and I had the best that I needed. So if I needed the best of something, I had it. If something less than that was adequate and it cost less, that's what I had. So it didn't matter what. Graphic design, I had the tablet, the graphics tablet I needed. Video production, I had the cameras I needed. I had the blue screen, I had the green screen, I had the lighting, all those things. The cases, and of course with the music gear and all that, everything I do, electronics, soldering, everything I did, I had the best tools imaginable. And now they're all either gone completely, just gone, or they've been destroyed since being thrown into that car 24 hours a day a year and a half ago by American Musical Supply. Well, this laptop is a big, huge gaming laptop. I mean, and it's not a great one at that. I had bought it basically at the same time as I bought the smaller one I was using. That one broke while I was staying in that hotel just a few months before I got fired. And that's when I had to break this one out. I was saving this for specific purposes, for rendering in particular, something I can just set aside and do the rendering. But I ended up having to make it my main computer. Well, again, a few months later, they threw me out of American Musical Supply, so I had to sit in the car with this huge power brick, which you can only do that so long in a car before it starts to short out, and it did. And I taped it all up, and now it's at the point, I mean, it just took me maybe 10-15 minutes of jiggling the thing to try to get it to where, yeah, it's still working, to where the power cord will even work. Well, if that goes out completely, then I've completely lost the use of this computer, because you have to have that power cord. So this computer and this camera, which is also broken, the screen is all cracked, the handle came off, and half the time when I open it, it doesn't turn on, and sometimes, even just as I'm recording, it'll just shut off. It'll just turn off when it has full or good battery. Every other tool that I acquired over the last 18 years is gone, and this is all I have left, and they're being destroyed as well. That's the catastrophe of what these people did to me. I put in one of my videos on the American Homeless Holocaust channel, Lawsuit Mania. Talked about a 19-year-old girl in Texas, went to a restaurant, got some barbecue, had barbecue sauce, and she spilled it on herself and got a second-degree burn. But they claim to be able to prove that the barbecue sauce was heated something like 15 degrees higher than it should have been, so it's all their fault. And because of that, she is awarded by a jury $2.8 million. It's a 19-year-old girl who will never have to know what it means to actually work for a living anymore, because she got a second, not a third-degree burn, which is the bad one, the really bad one. She got a second-degree burn because she spilled it on herself, regardless of how hot it was. Look at what American Musical Supply did to me. And I get zero. And yet, if there was such thing as an attorney who actually is worth anything in Minnesota, and they took this, which would be the easiest lawsuit they could ever imagine, the evidence is so abundant, it'd be comical if I was watching someone else. You know, you're talking 20, 50, $100 million lawsuit easily. I mean, this is just, again, this is Holocaust scale devastation, and they knew what they were doing. I told them it's illegal for me to even apply for another job. What did they expect was going to happen? All you have to show is that they knew or reasonably should have known, and they did it anyway, and they are liable. That's all you have to do. It's that easy, and I have stacks of evidence beyond that. Just watch my closing argument to see, and that's for the criminal aspect. In a civil trial, in front of a jury, any jury that saw what would happen here, they would be able to empathize immediately, unless they fill the jury with crazy stalkers I've got online, stuff like that, or people who work at AMS. But I mean, any average person is going to figure this one out really easily. But there's not one lawyer in Minnesota that will work as hard as a homeless man, and they don't even feel shame about that. So this 19-year-old girl gets to take her second-degree burn traveling all around the world for the rest of her life now without ever working again. And all I wanted to do was work. I don't want $100 million. I just wanted to keep my job and take my tenure from 7 years to 8 years to 9 years to 10 years. That's all I wanted. How's $100 million going to get back everything I lost my entire life? It can't. It's gone forever. That's the reason it's so catastrophic. So these are the things I have to think about here as I finish up. And the interesting thing is, like, when I go to the library or whatever, when I'm not working on this stuff, what do? My throat burns so bad. I've got a cold from the transition and being outside in this wet cold all the time now. That's not going to go away either. So what do I do if I'm not working on this stuff? Well, think about it. It's the end. It's the end of my life. I will never be able to do anything productive again. So what do? Do I just play video games? Just goof off? Just say, well, whatever. All that stuff I was trying to do to help the world is gone. They took it away. Am I supposed to start trying to do it again? No. What I've been doing, just naturally, comes to me, is the same thing I did when I was a kid. Learning. I keep watching documentaries. I keep going out researching topics and trying to tie them to all the things I learned in all those disciplines over my lifetime. I watched a short biography from 60 Minutes, I believe, back in 1993 about physicist Richard Feynman. You know, he was just such a character. He's the guy on the Rogers Commission with the Challenger explosion who made sure that the public learned what really happened. If he hadn't been there, every other commissioner, since they were all political, if this guy, this maverick, this guy who didn't do what other people told him to do, he did the right thing instead. This guy, if he hadn't stood up, we might never have known that it was management that killed those astronauts, and Columbia later. So management killed 14 astronauts there. We only had 3 astronauts who died from technological problems. That was the 3 in the 60s who died on the ground in the capsule fire, Roger B. Chaffee and such. Feynman was a really interesting guy. He was on the Manhattan Project, I think when he was 19. Absolutely brilliant. I like him better than Einstein. But he died in, I think, 88. He died of cancer. And as I watched this biography, it was interesting. They're talking to his friends about what he did when he found out he's going to die, and he's realizing, I could die any day now. I don't have much time left, a week or two. What did he do with his life? He liked to play drums, bongos, but he liked to play drums. He liked to do all kinds of crazy things, fly kites, but he was so much like me. He couldn't look at anything without analyzing what's going on. You know, if he saw this mouse, he would just start thinking about everything, the calculus of the curves and what it means to have calculus in the world. And I mean, just thinking about everything instead of being a zombie who just picks up their mouse and brings up YouTube videos of cats on skateboards. So what did he do with his last days? Well, someone sent him a message saying that there was a math error in one of the papers that he wrote. Please excuse my throat. I'm not having a good time with the coughing and constantly blowing my nose, and it burns so badly. But they'd sent him a note saying that there was some math error in one of his papers, and he just kind of became obsessed with it. It was totally minor, trivial issue, and he and some friends worked on it, burned the midnight oil. He couldn't figure it out, and then the next morning his friend gets a call from him, and he says, I figured it out. And he sounded like someone who had just figured out how to build an anti-gravity device. This is a guy who's going to die in a few days. And to be honest, that's what I feel like. I wish I didn't have to do all this crap to try to make sure that the people who killed me get prosecuted and sent to prison. I wish the people whose job it is to do that would be doing that instead, so I could have a little fun in my final days, but I don't get to, because they are the lazy bums. I have to do all the work. But when I get a chance, that's what I look at. One of the things I looked at along those lines was a very long video, about a 3-hour video, on the history of Sumeria, which is a mess. So Sumeria is the area north of the Persian Gulf, which today would be southern Iraq, western Iran, that kind of thing. And basically Assyria, Babylon, and Persia. So Persia is what today we call Iran. Babylon is more or less what we call Iraq. It's at the south end. And then Assyria is also in Iraq, up near Mosul. And as they went through this history, and this guy did an absolutely amazing job when you consider the names these people have. I mean, Ashurbanipal and Belshazzar, and just these names that have multiple hyphens in them. And this guy's just rattling them off one after another, going through probably a couple hundred Babylonian kings and maybe 100 Assyrian kings. And it's just this rapid fire, and you're just watching. And basically what it is you have Nineveh, which is Assyria, to the north, and then you have Babylon down there to the south, almost at the Persian Gulf, and then you have later the Persia, the Medes and the Persians got together over in Susa. And if you read the Bible, you'll find how they interacted with them. You know, when God judged Israel, he split them into two pieces. So the northern kingdom of Israel, where Ahab and Jezebel came from, and then the southern one, which was Judah, with Jerusalem. That's where Jesus would come from. Well, the Assyrians came in and took over Israel. That's 10 tribes. They assimilated them, although they were preserved because many of those people fled to Jerusalem. So the 12 tribes are preserved to this day. But it was Assyria that came in, and Assyria was especially nasty. They were not kind. Let's put it that way. The way that they slaughtered and sacked a city was absolutely savage, absolutely barbaric. They made cannibals look like distinguished gentlemen. The Assyrians were just demonic. The Babylonians, I mean, ancient times, they were really bad, but they weren't that bad. And same for the Persians. Well, if you look around these cities, there's all these other villages, Nippon and, I can't even remember them all, but there's a whole bunch of these little cities. And Mila, and then the trade routes that go through there and everything. So my point is this. It started in 2000 BC, so it's 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago is when Babylon was founded, basically as just a small community. And this is out in the desert. All these places are in the desert. And all these little communities were basically a bunch of warlords, families. When you think about it, Abraham, when he was called, Ur was one of these. That's what Abram was called out of to go to the Promised Land, where he was renamed Abraham by God. Well, Ur is one of those cities. And when all those kings came and took over Sodom and they took Lot and his family away, Abraham, who's just a man, that's what I mean when I say these guys are basically warlords. These guys are so wealthy, they employ so many people that they build a small army. And by small, I'm probably just a few hundred guys. But he took his 200 guys or so and went and beat, 4 kings? Kings. Because the kings, back then had 500-man armies, not 40,000. So that's what's going on in Babylon and Nineveh, Assyria, and Persia for about 1,500 years. From 2000 BC until about 500 BC, when that whole area kind of became unimportant and all those cities were wiped out forever. But here's the thing, the whole history of this over 1,500 years is ordinary people like you working in the fields, trying to get clean water to drink. trying to raise your children without them dying from disease, and through it all, endlessly, constantly, for 1,500 years, being at war. When you look at the records, Nineveh kept incredible records of what happened. Very useful records, the Library of Nineveh and such. And they will make a point to say, this year we did not go to war. Because every year it seems like they went to war. They're constantly fighting each other. Imagine living through that. 1,500 years, you and your descendants, your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, for 1,500 years. What their life is, their entire life, from birth to death, is being invaded by people who want to kill you, enslave you, rape the women, maybe rape the men, and steal all your stuff. And that's your life while you're trying to live a life. You might wonder why we didn't develop cars and physics and airplanes and things like that, and democracy. Why didn't we develop this back 4,000 years ago? Well, that's why, because that's what everyone had to do every day of their life, was just try to stay alive. Either a drought will kill them, or a famine, or an infestation, or a plague, or this endless constant fighting. This is how our ancestors lived. And people don't want to get it because they look at Greece or Rome, which is more civilized, and they think that's how it always was. No, it wasn't. For most of the time, that 500 years I told you about after all of this happened for 1,500 years, that's when Greece and Rome started. The things that we consider civilization. These people lived like this generation after generation after generation for thousands of years. And frankly, when you got into Greece and Rome and, quote, civilization, all the way through the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages and the Enlightenment, up until the last 100 years, really, it has been a struggle to stay alive against those threats, the natural threats of disease, famine, plague, etc., etc. As you built more stable civilizations, you get things introduced like economic threats, like a recession or a depression, those kinds of things, trade problems. The wars became fewer, so you didn't have wars constantly all the time, but when there was a war, it could wipe out an entire generation. So there was this modification of the way that warfare was. But my point is, up until about 100 years ago, especially in the United States of America, life was really hard for people. It wasn't easy. They didn't have toilets. It was difficult. And this is the point I've been trying to make all along. When you look at what American Musical Supply did to me, absolutely obliterated my life. Every single aspect of my life. Took everything away from me. Forever. Never to be had. They did to me what Assyria would do to, say, Israel. They burn everything to the ground. They knock over every rock. They steal everything. They rape everybody. They kill everybody. They enslave everybody. They castrate everybody. And then they go to town on them with a blowtorch and a pair of pliers, if you know what I mean. This is how our ancestors lived. They had problems. And the idea that Americans in the 20th and 21st centuries can claim to have problems when you realize what these people had to go through in the past really brings a lot of shame to our generation. The worst problem we have is that we ourselves spilled some barbecue sauce on us and got a second-degree burn. So we have to go out and sue somebody and get nearly $3 million for that. What did I do that justified American Musical Supply taking us back to the Stone Age, doing to me? They finally, over our ancestors, through their blood, sweat, and tears and suffering, our ancestors for thousands of years brought us to where we are today, and they gave their lives to do it for us, so that we could live in a society that is incredibly safe and healthy and pleasant, and our lives are longer, and we're healthier, and we have more fun, and we have a concept of what leisure even is. They gave us that through their hard work and their suffering. They're putting up with all this peril. We don't have it in our generation. So what does American Musical Supply do? The worst problem in the world they have is an employee who wants to save the life of a coworker who appears to be killing herself with drugs. That's the worst problem they have. And what do? They go scorched earth on that person, and they literally take us back to the Stone Age, when you have things like the Assyrian Empire, who would go in and just scorch the earth and destroy absolutely everything. That's what they did to my life. This is the point I've been trying to make. What these people did is so wrong, so fundamentally wrong. That is why I will not let this issue go. And they knew that this was going to happen. We live in a society that doesn't have that kind of fear. When's the last time you feared a foreign invasion of Madagascar? Is some raiders from Madagascar going to bust into your house while you're sleeping and rape your wife and kidnap your children and take all your gold and jewelry and money, burn your house to the ground? When's the last time you feared that? I'm guessing never, because you don't have to. You see, we don't have problems. American Musical Supply didn't have a problem. They had an opportunity. When something like that happens, if you're competent at all, especially a competent business person, you sit down with the people, you talk to them, and you resolve the issue like grown adults, like professionals, and you make sure that everybody comes out of it stronger, so that you have a stronger company and stronger bonds between the people. That's what you do. You don't go scorched earth on one of the people because you don't like the fact that they're homeless and do to them what Assyria did to everybody 4,000 years ago. What these people did, I don't know how to get the point across. They didn't just terminate somebody, they completely exterminated their life, their family, the memory of their family, and their family bloodline. This isn't normal, folks. This isn't normal. They knew exactly what they were doing. I told them. And if anybody wonders why I keep making all these videos and I keep fighting to roll and to get my hand over that finish line as I'm dying, that's the reason why. If they had just fired me for some legitimate reason, I gotta move on. What they did is evil beyond anything we see in the 21st century. It's a magnitude, it's orders of magnitude of evil that can only be compared to the Holocaust in our generation. That's the only time we've seen this kind of evil that you had everywhere in the world throughout most of human history, until our ancestors did the work necessary to give us something better. But American Musical Supply took us back to that bad place. They completely obliterated a person's life. They didn't just terminate him. They erased his existence. Everything I've done with my life is now gone. Those 12 years I spent writing those 3 books, there's no evidence that I ever wrote those books anymore. I did that. There's no evidence that I even wrote it. The manuscripts are gone. There's nothing that attaches my name to all that work that I did. And everything else I've done throughout my life, they obliterated everything. And a girl who spills barbecue sauce on herself gets $3 million. And I get to go out into the woods and die. So if I seem a little bit angry here in this last week of my life, I just wanted you to know why. Because as I've been telling people about this for a year and a half, nobody has done anything about it. All I've gotten is exploitation from social services, who, as always, after all this time, all this sound and fury, all this effort for me on my behalf, still have their jobs, still have their families, still have their cars, still have their possessions, still have everything. And I'm infinitely worse off than I was before I ever even met them. The fraud of social services. This is the reason I'm talking about this, folks. I'm hoping over the next several days, I really want to finish this up so that I don't have to do this anymore. Because I would like to have a few days. Those days I'm out in the woods while I'm actually dying, this won't be an issue. And I will be able to spend my time talking to God all day and doing the things I want to do. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be heartbreaking. And it's going to be physically torturous in this cold, wet, Nobody helped me. 4,000 years ago, when you look at these stories of Assyria and Babylon and Egypt, you know, the brutality of people, these warlords, which is what AMS is. They're just a bunch of primitive warlords, barbarians, savages. When you... The thing you learn from it is that what kept people alive back then was, first of all, family. And second of all, friends. Like the friendships I was trying to form at American Musical Supply. What I offered that backstabber was something that could, not because I'm anything special, but it makes her life better to have good friends. Not just me, but others, hopefully, she would get throughout her life. And it helps me to have good friends. As I've said, the reason I'm even alive this long is because of these wonderful, good people who care about me. And they do nice things for me when they have the least to give to other people. Those are friends. Those are the best of the best of the best out there. I'll take these people over any lawyer, legislator, politician, celebrity any day. These are the good people. And 4,000 years ago, that's how people survived, was being that good to each other. What that backstabber did to me, in fact, what I was getting at was the worst thing that happens is you go through the records and the writings, I mean everything, the old stuff, the Epic of Gilgamesh, you know, all emanated from that area. The worst thing in every society was a traitor. Someone who betrays you. A backstabber. It was the worst thing, and it had the worst punishment of all. It was almost instant death for anybody. Because it's that bad. You can't survive if you can't even trust the people who are standing behind you. I thought I could trust everyone in that workplace. I'd been there 7 years. They could trust me. They had not given me any reason to believe I couldn't trust them except for the home office, but they were in New Jersey, so who cared? This backstabber is the one who made the connection, and that useless HR rep they have there are the ones who made the connection between our office and the home office so the home office could finally get rid of their homeless employee in this savage, barbaric manner. What these people did deserves life imprisonment. That isn't me saying, oh my gosh, these guys fired me. They fired me. Therefore, they must go to prison for the rest of their lives. That's not what this is about, folks. It's what they did was that bad. It has been regarded as the worst thing you can possibly do to another person since the beginning of recorded human history. Every generation has said this is the worst thing you can do to another person. That's why those people should be in a prison for the rest of their lives. Never allowed to hurt another person ever again. That's why I seem so obsessed with this. And I am obsessed with it. Because you're going to go on living. Do you want to live in a world with people like that in there? Because don't forget, you don't know that they're a backstabber until they stab you in the back. I didn't know. You don't either. If I don't call them out, how are you going to know that you can't trust those people? You're not. And you could be next. Though, any problem that did exist, if there was a problem other than this narcissist, probably drug-addicted narcissist, being worried that I'm going to expose her to drug use and doing whatever she can to try to get rid of the threat, if there was any real problem there, you know what? It doesn't even compare to the problems that our ancestors had. You hear people say sometimes first world problem. That's a way of saying it, but it doesn't even get across what we're talking about here. Again, tonight when you go to sleep, are you going to have to worry about people from Nepal riding in on horses, setting your house on fire, stealing your kids, raping your wife? Are you going to have to worry about that? No, you're not. You're going to tell me you have problems? As I walk out here, I hear these people, I see and hear these people honking their horn at someone else. when I was crossing the road, I was crossing the crosswalk, and the person did exactly what they're legally obligated to do. They sat there with their turn signal on, and they waited for me to cross first, even though technically they could have pulled in front. They did the right thing. And what happened? The person behind them lays on their horn against that person up there who did the right thing instead of the wrong thing. Meanwhile, in the last month or so, we've had 2 people right out here, just out here, pedestrians, get hit by cars. One of them was walking his dog. The dog died, and I never heard whether the person died, whether the guy died. And the other one was 2 days ago. It was a homeless guy, another homeless guy who comes in here. He got hit, he got dragged, the car ran off, and he was in shock, and he came down here, and I didn't see him, but apparently he was just spitting blood. His face was destroyed. The very thing I've warned about the backstabber that could happen to her in an instant when she least expects it, and then all of her power is gone because she won't have that beauty, and she's going to learn the hard way how the rest of us have to go out and ask people for help when her beauty's gone. I don't even know if he's still alive. As a pedestrian, that's what I have to deal with. Almost every time I walk through here, these cars don't even look for me. They're sitting there on their phones, or they make a right turn without even looking to see if there's a pedestrian who has the right of way. They don't even look. I can't count how many times a car would have hit me if I didn't do something, an evasive maneuver. That's a problem. That's a real problem. You don't have that. So these are the things I'm dealing with in the last days of my life. If I had my way, I would be doing the fun stuff like Feynman did. I would be working on physics and math problems. Of course, all the research I did on that has been destroyed in California storage thanks to American Musical Supply. I think Einstein was wrong. I think I've said this before in some of my videos. I really think he's wrong. I always have. And it's been amazing how over the last 20 years, while all that's in California and I was waiting to get it back so I could continue with it, I've heard more and more and more people agree with me and say, Einstein wasn't right about this. I would have loved to have seen that through and worked on it. But it'll never happen now. It was destroyed by American Musical Supply in their scorched earth policy. They could have just, anything that was going on, if they think they had a real problem in that office with one of their very best employees trying to save the life of a coworker, if that's the worst thing they have to worry about, these people should be removed from society for your safety. Every one of them, including that backstabber. A vicious, dangerous, dangerous person. And I told them, this girl is dangerous. And they didn't listen to a word I said. They just can't get it. Because it's all about them. Other people don't matter. And that's why they need to be removed from society for your safety. That's why I'm doing all this. That's why I want the Justice Department putting those people in a courtroom. For your safety. I'm going to be dead. In case you didn't figure that out. This isn't for me. When I'm dead, I'm not going to know or care whether they ever got prosecuted or went to prison. This is for your safety. I hope you realized that all along, right? These people, whatever happened in that office, could have just sat down in a room with us, spent some time talking, and we would have left stronger than ever before and gotten back to work, and none of this would have happened to me. Not one bad thing would have happened to me. But this happened because this is what they wanted to happen. So the moral is, as I'm here in my last days on this earth, the thing I hate the most is that I have to sit here and think about this and obsess about this and make videos about it and do everything I can to try to get proper authorities to actually do their job, do the work that a homeless man did with no pay, to prosecute these people and get them off the streets like you would with any thug, any backstabber, any gangster. That's what law enforcement's for. That's the whole point of having laws, a legal system, is to get rid of those kinds of people. That's what it's for. But I have to do all the work. And because of that, I don't get to spend the last days of my life doing what Feynman did. breaking spaghetti and asking, why do they break into 3 pieces instead of 2? And trying to figure that out. Those are the things I love to do. I love it. Exploring, investigating the world, researching, learning, coming up with new ideas, new discoveries. That's what I want to do with my last few days here. But thanks to American Musical Supply and the laziness and sloth and irresponsibility and apathy of everyone out there who won't do anything about this, I'm the one who has to do it. It's supposed to rain all day and be very cold, and as she said, wind advisory. I have to take the last thing I had to sell, the one thing I kept it so hidden so that I would just forget that I even had it. That's how badly I didn't want to lose it. Of all the stuff I've lost, all that music gear, that music studio I spent 18 years building, 31 electric guitars in there. The one I loved the most was probably the one I sold to Milo, which is the one I bought just a month or 2 before I got fired. I'd looked for this guitar for 10 years. I finally got it. It was perfection. And it was almost instantly gone, thanks to this music store, American Musical Supply. But the other one, the second nicest one, was my Dream Bow 335 semi-hollow. Zebra wood with rosewood knobs and rosewood tuners. Gorgeous inlays. Custom snakeskin case. And the case even has its own humidor in it, where you can read the humidity. Absolutely stunningly beautiful, gorgeous guitar. And that's why I named that guitar when I bought it years ago after my wife. I did not want to lose this guitar. I've lost every other one I had, everything else I worked to earn. But just to finance me going into the woods to die, I have to get money. I have no money. I'm hungry. So I have to sell that guitar. So I left the library early last night and I went to storage, and while carrying that heavy backpack with all those batteries and everything, so heavy that it is already hard to carry, I had to carry this heavy case, and because it's such a beautiful professional case, it's not the kind that you sling over your shoulder. It doesn't have shoulder straps. You have to carry it by the handle. It's the largest and heaviest guitar I had. And I get outside and it's windy. I'm malnourished. My feet are destroyed. It's windy. The thing's just swinging. And I've got to cross all these roads at rush hour when I just told you how dangerous it is. And I have to cross one intersection after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, almost every block for about a mile. And I could barely drag myself. I almost wanted to collapse on the ground. I made it here to this store, and it was probably 10 minutes before that pawn shop was going to close. And I still had another 40 minutes maybe to walk. And I had to ask him if I could leave the guitar back there until tomorrow. So tomorrow I have to go out in the rain now, apparently, in the wind, and it's even colder than it was. Malnourished, with bad feet, my back in the condition it's in. Since I haven't been able to lay flat for the last 2 months, my back is destroyed as well. And sell the guitar I named after my wife. This stunningly gorgeous, rare guitar. If I could sell this thing on Facebook or something like that, if I had the infrastructure, a phone and proper email and a home and all that, I could probably easily get $600 for that thing, if not more. I'm going to be lucky if I get $250, $300 from the pawn shop, just like everything else I sold. Pennies on the dollar. And that's after I break my back carrying it down there with tears in my eyes. I couldn't stop crying as I was walking with this thing. I did not want to lose this. These people took absolutely everything from me. They did to me what Assyria did to cities that no longer exist because of what Assyria did to them. They obliterated these places. They obliterated family bloodlines. They killed people. They hurt people. They harmed people. They erased them from the annals of human history. That is what American Musical Supply did to me. How can I not think about that during the final days of my life?